hopefully we don't screw this up. What's going on, everyone? Jason with Wandering Grace Farm. Today's the day. We've been dreaming of an orchard. We pulled the trigger and bought some fruit trees, and today we're putting them in the ground. Let me show you what we got. So this is our orchard area. It's on the north side of the property. I don't know, probably about 2 months ago. Staked out where we wanted the trees and what layout we wanted. Right now we have 3 rows of stakes of T-posts to show where the trees would go and the planning for it. And so right now, we originally bought 10 fruit trees. We picked up another 2 tomorrow, so we got 12 total in this first row right here. And the plan is to, for this year, plant this row, and then next year we'll plant the middle row. Year after that, we'll plant the 3rd row, and then we're talking about putting a 4th row in past that. So kind of a staggered planting. You know, these trees they're pretty well developed. They're not necessarily cheap, so it's cost prohibitive for us to do the entire orchard all at once. So we're going to do it one at a time. And also, I'm not sure if this is true or will happen, but you know, if we put this year's in the ground, next year we put one in the ground, year after that one in the ground. The hope is that if these start dropping in production, then we have these other 3 that'll keep going. So rather than the whole orchard taking a drop all at once, taking a hit all at once, it'll be a gradual drop and we should be able to see it. I don't know if that'll happen, but in my mind, that's the way it'll work, but we'll see. So the plan is to move the trees away from the stakes. I set these stakes in to show where we wanted the trees and just to get the plan down. The setup down. And so when we put the trees out here, we supported them with some string against the stakes so the wind doesn't blow them. So we're gonna have to cut the strings, move the trees around. We have different types of trees and they have different heights. So I'm going to move the trees from the shortest in the south end and the tallest in the north end. We got a Bartlett pear, and I didn't notice when we bought it, but the Bartlett pear, I guess, gets 40 feet tall. So we want that in the back. I don't know if it makes a big difference, but we just want to make sure the tallest stuff is towards the north, so it doesn't block any sun when it gets full grown. So we're gonna have to do some musical chairs with the trees, put them in order that we want, and then we're gonna have to weed eat around the base of the trees, around the base of the stakes, to make sure it's clean, so when we dig out, there's no vegetation there. And then obviously dig the hole and then stake the trees in, and we're going to put 2 stakes with some baling wire and some hose remnants, and that should be it. So seems simple enough. I got the help from the 2 boys this morning. They have an obligation later today, so got to try to make as much use of them as we can, and I think they're calling for rain later today, so I don't know how much we'll get done today, but we'll do what we can and hopefully we don't screw this up. So come on along and let's see what we can do. Okay, so what we have here is we got a cheater stick. I'm looking to dig a hole that's about twice as wide as the pots are. The pots are 12 inches, so we're gonna go 24 inches. So we're gonna use this as our cheater stick. We're gonna go, the post is where tree's gonna go. And so we're just going to put this right there. And so I know there's an edge. There's an edge. And then I'm going to switch. There's an edge. There's an edge. And then we go this way. There's an edge. And there's an edge. And so from there, should be able to connect the dots. Okay, so that's as wide as our hole is going to be. So should be able to take these out. Take these out and we'll reuse them. Reuse them as our post to hold the tree, stakes to hold the tree in. And then we start digging. So Ethan asked, do we not want to use the topsoil? I could mix it all together. But I'd rather use what's underneath this topsoil, this layer. So we're going to put this just off to the side. I don't have any rhyme or reason really for why I don't want to use the topsoil. Except for that's where all the growth is, so I'd rather use some of this subsoil, soil underneath the surface, as my fill, with the hope that there's no seeds or anything in there. Okay. So what I'll probably end up doing with this pile is probably end up using that as a berm. Try to berm it up to keep water in. But we'll see how it goes. But now we just got to dig it. So we're going to go twice as wide, which is 24 inches. And then from what I've seen, read, and watched, you go as deep as the root ball is. So these pots, they might be, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 inches tall, but the root ball isn't 12, 13 inches tall. So, okay, Ethan says about 10 or 11. So we'll put this in here because I want to mix some compost in with this stuff. But you want to go, so if it's about 11 inches, well, the pot's 11 inches, about, roughly. I got a tape measure, but just using the cheater stick, it's 11. But then if you look inside, there's probably 3 or 4 inches below the surface, the top of it. So it's probably 8 or 9 inches. So the hole really just needs to be about 8 or 9 inches deep. But you want to make from what I've seen, you want to make the hole a little bit bigger to give those roots room to work, some soft soil to work. Our soil out here is sand. When we had our organic or our soil test done last year, I think the organic matter was, I don't know, less than 1%, maybe hovering around 1%. I don't remember off the top of my head. There's not much organic matter in here, so That's the reason why we're going to add some compost to it. Try to retain some of the water that we put in. Because of sand, the water goes through pretty quick. Nah, I'm fine right now. I don't need a shovel. One thing I found about wearing a mic and doing work is you guys can hear the grunts and the groans, so I apologize. Can you go get the tape measure, please, Ethan? Should just be on the back of the mule. Okay, let's get a baseline and see where we're at. Where's the cheater stick? Hand me the shovel, please. Chase, can you go turn the water on, please? Okay, so with the cheater stick, we can also, and you can use a shovel or anything straight for that matter, long and straight. Cheater stick, this will be the surface of our ground, so we can measure from the bottom of the cheater stick. So where are we at?
8.5.
We're about 8.5. So let's go ahead and get the tree. So putting this in, I'd say that's about right. We might be a little too low, so we'll put some dirt in for it. So let's grab that bag. We just want to use half of that. So this is what the garden center had. It's just cotton burr compost for in-ground use. We've used this before on a couple trees that we have on our property, landscape trees, decorative trees, and it seemed to work okay. Like I said, this is all sand, and so water flows through there pretty good. So we're just adding this to, not necessarily for the nutrients, but just to try to hold some of that moisture. Can you hold that, please?
Yep.
Just to hold the moisture in the hole so it doesn't drain as fast. Again, no reason why we use this cotton burr compost, except that's just what the garden center had. So we're gonna try to use about half of this bag for this project, or for this tree, I should say. So we gotta figure out how to divide this. So I'll go like this. And go down. And put this in our fill dirt. trying to get half a bag. Okay, that's good enough for this. So let's go ahead and put some of this at the bottom.
Are the seashells in here for like salt?
I don't know. I don't know what they're in there for. Okay. So first off, let's get this protective wrap off. We'll put that back on when we're done. So that's the graft. So this right here is a Reliance peach. It says it gets 6 to 8 feet tall, 12 to 15 feet wide. So we put this in the south end because it should be the shorter of everything. But let's go ahead and take it out. Let's get rid of
all of them.
Just leave it. Okay, and so I'm gonna take this thing out. So we look pretty good. I'm gonna keep the dirt that's on the roots here. I don't see any roots that are necessarily circling around, so that's good. Yeah, but sometimes I get a big old root that starts wrapping around, so you got all these tiny roots. So we'll just rough this up and get the bottom. Yep. Okay. And so now our graft site appears to be right here. I assume this has one. From my understanding, a lot of them do. And so that looks like where the graft site is, if it is one. So we want that to be above the ground. So we take our cheater stick, let go please. Take our cheater stick, and we are just about, we're a little high, which I'm okay with. Not by much. So it'll allow for some settling. So what I'm told is, yeah, you can get the hoe and do it. What I'm told is pretty much where the tree sits in the pot, that's how you plant it. So, you know, this graft site's above, and I could be making more of a big deal of it, but I think in general, whatever it's planted like in the nursery pot, that's how you want to do it out in the real world, out in the field. So I think we're just going to go with that. So I'm kind of, got all these roots on top that are kind of, I don't know what they're going to do. You know, you got roots sticking up like this, like all over. So hopefully they find their way back down, because I don't want to cover it up with soil, because then I cover everything else up. So like I said, we're at a little, we're higher right here, which I'm okay with. Let me get rid of this thing. those others were easy to pull, but this one's not.
Stapled on.
Okay, so we're gonna pull this stake out and get rid of this thing. That's a decent stake. We'll save that for something else. We mixed yet? So we got a bow on the trunk right here, and then it eventually starts going upright right about here. So my mind's telling me to put the trunk upright, but then everything else is sideways. And that just doesn't look right. So I'm thinking I'm gonna leave it like this to where we have the bow, but then it's growing upright with the rest of the limbs. So I think I'm gonna leave it like this. Leave the bow at the bottom. So, you good?
Yeah, should be.
Go ahead and grab the shovel. Start giving me some shovels in here.
But you're gonna use half of this thing to bucket out.
Well, we gotta tamp it in. So, actually, hold on. I need you to check for level. So, obviously, it's a tree, and you don't have one line going up and down. So, don't look at the trunk necessarily. Just look at this. So we're good. We're good north south, roughly. I mean, as long as we're not crazy sideways. Okay, good east-west. I'm gonna start tamping this down. Go ahead. Careful of the trunk. If you just put it right there, I'll spread it. Okay. And we're making sure to tamp down the dirt, get it nice and solid. So we just mixed in half a bag of this compost in with the dirt that we took out of the hole. The dirt over here on this side is just the topsoil with all the vegetation on it or in it. And so I'll probably end up using that as a berm.
What if they don't know what a berm is?
What I mean by berm is a little dam-like structure around so the water stays in rather than running off. Ow. Come on, we need it. Just dump it. Just dump it. There you go. You can put that right there. Do it the easy way. Dump it out. Yeah, but the thing is, this is gonna pack down. Oh.
It's pretty spongy.
Yeah. So I'm every bit of 230 and that didn't budge too much, so we should be packed pretty good. Okay, so the intent for this is to use the stakes, the T-posts, and drive these in. Probably go down until there's about 4 feet sticking up. And then we'll take some baling wire and cut off a section of hose, old hose that we had laying around, but cut off a section of hose and use this as a buffer, as a cushion, and then have it up against the tree like this. So we'll have one on the north side, one on the east side. The wind predominantly, from what I've seen, comes out of the south. So south is where I'm standing right now. And so we'll have a stake or T-post on the south side, T-post on the north side. And so with those two tie down points, we should be good. Occasionally we'll get a big east wind, occasionally we'll get a big west wind. But if we have north and south, I think we'll be covered. So that's what's going to be next. Can you go down? No, go down there. Just general. Actually, let's move it closer a little bit. So all we're doing is just trying to line it up with the row, so it looks uniform. Got it.
Wait, you want it tilted? No.
No.
Okay.
See the mark?
Should be good.
Okay.
Don't sit fully.
Yep. Loud. Okay. So we got these in place. So now we need to cut us off a section of wire. Yeah, you can cut off a section of hose. You got the blade right over there. So this has to be kind of long. I've done this with our landscape trees. We got a magnolia I tied off like this, and it worked really good. Magnolias, I used 3 tie down points. They were the first trees that we got, and I think 3 might be a little overkill. So we'll see what we got with this. No, it's too long. Sure. Okay. So that was the hard part. We were talking last night because we had a storm come through. So it's like, where do you tie it off at? So if you tie it off right here at the trunk, then you have all this up here that's exposed to the wind. And so, you know, potentially in my mind, it could snap, especially here in Oklahoma since the wind gets so bad. But you don't want to go too far up here, so I'm going to try to stake it off just somewhere in this area right here and hope for the best and hope that it doesn't snap off the top on us. And so Ethan just cut off a section of hose. It's good to use for hose if you have laying around, because you don't want to have the wire just digging in, sitting on the trunk, because then when it moves, it'll just start rubbing into the trunk. So this adds a little buffer. You just thread the wire through it like that. So anyway, let's see. I guess I want to do that first.
I just make a lot right now.
No, Chase can. Chase, can you start cutting? So how big is that? Figure out however big that is. And then just start cutting chunks, because we're gonna need them. Yeah, but we need that one though. So if you want to just cut one and then you can take it, it doesn't matter to me. So all I'm doing is just wrapping this around. Yeah, all you're doing is just cutting them off a piece to go off of. That's fine. Just do them that size, please. You can go to the mule and do it. So you can cut against the surface. Okay, so there's one. We got 12 trees, so I need 22 more of those. Or 21 more of those since you have one in your hand. We'll have enough. We have enough hoses laying around. So I'd rather have too much wire than not enough wire. So probably one more half. Okay. So what we do is just thread that through. And then we'll put this on the bottom. Twist it around. Open it up a little bit. And then come over here. So I don't necessarily want it super tight, because from my understanding is you want the tree to move a little bit, and that helps with the root growth. You know, we got the sand up here, and so I planted the magnolias last spring, I think, spring of 24. And so did it just like this, staked them off like this. And I reached out to the garden center like, hey, it's been a year, can we take the stakes out? And they said, no, because you have the sand, you need to give it a little more time for the roots to develop and roots to go down further, which makes sense. So we'll take the tie downs off the magnolias sometime next year, spring of next year probably. Same thing with these, we'll leave these on for a couple years. We will monitor it, see about the trunk growth, see if we need to expand these loops or move these loops. So like right here, you can see it's been rubbing with where that nursery stake was and the tape that they use. But, so the way we have it is you still have a little bit of movement this way. And you do have movement this way, but you don't have much. So it's one of those fine lines. You don't want to go too tight and you don't want to go too loose. So I'm happy with that for now. We'll monitor it and see what we got. Okay, so close up of what we got. So you just have that hose looped around the wire, and this is just baling wire. And so it's pretty loose. So, you know, if we flex this way, you can still move it down, up and down. Same thing up here. Move it up and down. So you see where that wear mark is. from the nursery stake. So that's one thing you don't want to do with these, is have them be so tight that they start digging in to the trunk. So you just have to monitor it, make sure that as the tree grows, these supports move with it and grow with it. So, but we just twisted it there, and then same thing here, twisted it there. Nice thing about T-posts, you got these notches, so it shouldn't slide down. But yeah, so that's what we have, 1 and 2. And so we got some north-south movement, we got more east-west movement. So hopefully that won't be a factor. We'll monitor it. Okay, we got the first one in. It's exciting. We plan on doing the same thing for the remaining 11. So we're not gonna videotape all 11 going in the same way. But we got the overview, the camera over there going, so we'll just do a time lapse of putting them all in. But individually we won't video that. But we're planning on doing it all the same way. If something changes, then we'll let you guys know. Just a quick tip on T-posts and driving T-posts. So what we like to do is we like to figure out how deep we want to set our T-post. So this is a 6-foot T-post. And so I want it to be 2 feet in the ground to provide as much support as we can. So what we do is we take a tape measure at the top of the T-post and then measure down 4 feet, and then we spray paint the line with marking paint. And so when we're driving it down, that's just a visual indicator. Once we get close to that mark, then we can stop, and we're about 4 feet. But that's what we do with all of our T-posts when we drive them in, is we put a mark on, showing where we want it to stop, and we drive until that mark is on the ground, and then we stop. Okay, we just had a lunch break, and coming back out here, we've gotten 4 done. I don't remember what time we started, but it seems like the more we do, the faster it's getting. So I couldn't tell you how much time is spent per tree, but it does take a little bit to dig it out, make sure it's the right size, make sure you pack it in enough, and then set up the stakes. But we're getting it. So we got 4 in, and only what, 8 more to go. So I don't know if we'll get done today, but we'll see what we can do. But let's see what we got so far. So the first 2 in the orchard are going to be the peach trees. We did end up putting the berm, so the topsoil that we pulled out and put to the side, we made this little berm, little dam area. When we started watering, what we found was the water wasn't really staying in place, and it's taken a while for it to soak up. So I ended up creating the berm around the base of the tree so the water will stay put and soak down into the roots. But we got 1 peach, second peach, same thing, and then apricots, and apricot. So I'm trying to go pairs of trees, apricots, however you want to say it. And the peaches, they're self-pollinating, so same variety for those. I think we changed the variety for the apples and the pears, switched up varieties, 2 different varieties. But for everything else, it's just 1 variety. So you got the apricot, the berms, and then sticking with the same stake situation, support situation. So it seems to be working all right. So it is 1:15. I think I got about another 30-45 minutes with the boys. So let's see how much we can knock out in the short amount of time. And then once they're gone, then Laurie will come out and try to help finish this up. Let's see how far we get. Okay, that completes today's project. Luckily, we were able to get all the trees in the ground. Let's take a look at what we got. So all in all, we have 12 trees, 6 different types of fruit. Some of them have different varieties, some of them have the same variety. Back here we have our pears. We have our Bartlett pear, and we have our Moonglow pear. Here we have our Honeycrisp apple. Here we have our Red Delicious apple. Here we have our nectarine. And our second nectarine. These are Methley plums. Same variety, both of them, Methley plums. Apricot, I can't remember which ones these are called. These are called Blenheim apricots. That's all they had at the garden center, so it'd be interesting to see how those come out. But both of those are the same. And then here we have the peaches, and these are just the Reliance peach. Yep, Reliance peach, both of them. So my only reservation with the way that we tied them off, tied them down, is especially for these nectarines. These nectarines are so tall. They're probably, I don't know, 7 feet, maybe even 8 feet. And so we hold them down here on the trunk, but you still have all this that's exposed to the wind. And the wind blows pretty hard here in Oklahoma. And so I don't know if I'm going to get another tie-off point from the top of the T-post to maybe like right here. I don't know. I gotta think through that. Because last thing I want is for wind to come through and snap the top of it off, and then we're done. So I got to think through that and see what we need to do. So just to recap what we did, we had a 12-inch pot, and we made the hole 2 times that diameter, so 24 inches across. We went as deep as the pot itself, as the planting itself, and then we set the root ball in the hole to where the crown of the root ball was just over the surface level. You know, we had that cheater stick that we were using as a to show where our surface was, and we were just over that level. The intent of having it sink down and come back down once we start getting water on it. So didn't want it to get too deep of a bowl shape. Wanted to crown a little bit to where it settles down. We mixed in the soil, the dirt, some compost, cotton burr compost. No other reason except that's what the garden center had. And we backfilled it, tamped it down, created the berm around the base to hold the water in, and then watered it. We gave them 2 waterings today. Might give another watering later tonight, but we'll water these at least once a day, depending on the weather. Yesterday it was like 97. Today I think it's only 85 right now. So we're on the tail end of summer, the hot stuff. So it's not as bad as it used to be. But that's what we got. So this is an exciting time for us. Even before we moved out here, we knew we wanted an orchard. When we first got out here, we weren't quite sure where we were going to put it. And this area up here kind of developed on its own. And so we're happy with the area. We're happy with where we put it. It's kind of surreal now that the trees are in the ground. And so now, like I said before, hopefully we don't screw this up. So it is what it's going to be. I know that when we were planning, I reached out, did a video asking, you know, if anybody had any tips to plant fruit trees. There was a lot of great tips that came in, a lot of good comments. You know, it's like I've said before in another video, is, you know, you ask how to do something, you ask 5 different people how to do one thing, and you might get 5 different answers. So everybody has their own way of planning. This is what we did. All those ideas were great, but this is what we decided to do. Just keep it simple. You know, sometimes the KISS principle pays off and is the best approach. Keep it simple, stupid. And so we'll see how it goes. We're not saying this is the way. We'll never say this is the way. We'll always say this is our way. So hopefully you guys learned something from it. Appreciate you coming along with us on this journey. And as always, stay rooted.